Hey guys, welcome back. In this particular video, we are going to talk about inflation. Basically, inflation is a very common topic whenever you study economics. Or especially whenever you go for the macroeconomics. So inflation is one of the most important topic, right? If you see, if you read newspaper, current affairs, so every week or every day or every if you see the government data, so on quarterly basis you'll find some news based on inflation as well. So with this particular video we will understand what is inflation and what are the causes behind inflation, what are the stages of inflation, and effect of inflation. So sometime I hope you read about inflation is good for economy, inflation is bad for economy. So what is the label for, or what is the suitable range of inflation for any particular economy? Like if you talk about the Indian economy, so what is the suitable range of inflation for Indian economy? So we will discuss these particular areas. Then we'll come to measurement of inflation, how to measure inflation. So like so many times, I hope you heard this is like, let's say NSO or RBI during monetary policy meet, they announce the inflation for the last quarter was 6% or 5.2%. So how they generally calculate, how they use CPI and WPI. So we'll talk about these one. And not only inflation, there are so many terms which is related to inflation. Like nowadays, if you follow some economists, so there are some term like a recession. So 2023, there are a number of economists, they suggest there might be a recession situation. 2008 world economy that generally face recession. So not only recession, we have stagflation, we have disinflation, we have reinflation. So what all are these particular terms? So with this particular video we will understand the basics of inflation. Basically you can say this is a part one for inflation, and I'll try to give you the basic idea about inflation, right? So now the first question is, what is inflation? I hope all of you you know about this particular question. So inflation is basically rise in prices. So whenever the prices of general goods and services increase, that economic situation is generally known as inflation, right? Let's say 10 years ago the prices for this particular marker was 30 rupees, and now it is 100 rupees. So this movement from 30 rupees to this 100 rupees increment in prices, so that economic situation is basically known as inflation. So rise in prices, hike in prices, or we can say increase in prices of general goods and services, that is defined as inflation. Now like every day we heard, like if you see the basic things about the prices of vegetables, the prices of anything like any other commodity, like so many times you heard about due to the inflation the prices are increasing and all. Okay, so inflation is defined as an increase in the general prices of general level of prices for goods and services. Now what will be the outcome if, like, let's say if any economy inflation is rising? Okay, so there is a high inflation. So if you talk about the Zimbabwe, Somalia, Venezuela, so they face 250% inflation in a year. So which means the domestic currency of that particular country will decrease by the same percentage. Okay, so whenever inflation increase, the value of money will decrease, the value of money will go down. So you can take a reference from this particular chart as well. So prices increase means inflation, and the outcome is the value of that domestic currency will decrease, or we can say the purchasing power of that particular country's currency will decrease. So as inflation rise, or as there is an inflationary situation in any economy, so every rupee you own buy a smaller percentage of goods and services. In your childhood, you may let's say the purchasing power of 1 rupee was 10 toffee. In 1 rupee you can purchase 10 toffees. but today in 1 rupee you are getting one toffee. So this, with this time, when the prices increase, or due to this inflationary situation, the value or the purchasing power of your money got decreased. Okay, so inflation is nothing. Inflation is like basically the hike in prices, the rise in prices, or we can say the increase in prices of general goods and services. And the outcome is, whenever, let's say, if inflation is increasing by 5%, so the value of your domestic currency will decrease by 5%. So whenever you calculate your real income, I hope you guys heard about these particular terms. We have two things. One is real income, another one is nominal income. So real income is like when you adjust inflation, so that outcome is real income. Let's say you invested 100 rupees at the rate of 8%. So at the end of the year, your outcome is 8%. You earn 8% from that particular investment. But during same time duration, the inflation goes up by 5%. So you have to minus 8 minus 5. So your real income is 3% only. So your nominal income was 8%, but your real income is only 3%. Okay, so hope with this particular example you get an idea about the inflation impact and all. Now with this basic idea, we'll come to causes of inflation. What are the basic causes behind this inflationary situation in any economy? So whenever we talk about the causes of inflation, there are so many causes due to these particular problems in any economy. Inflation increase, like if there is a war situation, the prices will goes up. If there is a less supply, so we have limited things, so demand will increase. Everybody will go for the stocking or the stock, the holding things. So the prices will increase. If the income level increase, okay, so if you have more income in your hand, so your spending will also increase. You'll create more demand in the market. Okay, so if there is a demand, so the prices will goes up. If we can say if the prices of raw material increase, so again there will be a price hike, so that is called inflation. So with these particular example, you can categorize the causes into two parts. One is demand pull inflation, which is arise due to high demand, and another one is cost push inflation, which is arise due to high cost. Okay, so whenever you talk about the causes, you can further categorize it into two parts. One is demand inflation. So what is demand inflation? If demand of any commodity or goods and services will increase, so definitely prices will also increase. So if demand is increasing, for any XYZ product, so the prices will also increase. The increase in prices, that is generally defined as, we can say, that is defined as inflation. So the increase in prices, that simply defined as inflation. We just read about this thing. Okay, so demand pull inflation. Cost push inflation. What is cost push inflation? If cost of any commodity increase, let's say if you are manufacturing this particular marker, so there is a plastic, there is a ink and all. So if the cost for the labor or the cost for this plastic or government increased taxes, so finally or definitely the manufacturer, they are going to increase the prices. So again, increase in price equal to inflation. So you can categorize the basic causes into two parts. First one is demand pull. So now what are the areas? Like as I told you, demand pull inflation is when demand for any commodity increase, the prices will definitely increase. So this relation, increase in prices, is generally known as inflation. Now what are the reason behind this increment in demand? So demand for any goods and service can there can be so many reasons behind this increment in demands, like money supply. So if there is an excess supply of money in the economy, let's say if RBI through monetary policy, government of India through fiscal policy, they increase money supply in the market, so there will be more circulation of money. People will have more money in their pocket, so their spending will also increase, correct? So if they are spending more, which means that is creating a demand in the economy, so there will be inflation. If population level also increase. Let's say there is more population, so they have more needs and wants, so again there will be demand. If reach or supply, if like any product which let's say if during the, you can take an example of COVID situation, when we have very less number of sanitizer, mask and all, so suddenly for these particular product, because we have that area is quite far where we do not have a proper connectivity, or we have very less supply, so in that particular case demand goes up, people start holding things and all, so the again the demand increase and the prices also goes up. Seasonal goods, for seasonal, like in winter generally people have demand for hot coffee, or we can say tea and all in so we have high demand, that 7 rupees tea you are getting in 10 rupee. Or in case of summers, you have demand for cool drinks and all, so the prices is similarly going up, right? So black money of circulation, next reason, if there will be black money in any economy, so they cannot deposit that particular money in banks, or they cannot because the source of that particular income is not defined, so they'll spend that particular money. So if there is a black money, so that is definitely going to increase demand, because they are just spending that particular money, right? Natural calamities, any, let's say any area, any remote area or any particular place where some natural calamities happen, like earthquake, flood and all, so during that particular situation, basically there is a cutoff of connectivity, so we have limited goods and services in particular area. So the limited goods which we have in that particular area, people will start storing things and all, so in that particular case again supplier is definitely going to increase their demand. So demand pull inflation is when there is an increment in demand, so the prices will goes up, and there are so many reasons behind demand pull inflation. Hope this is clear. For any point, if you have any concern, if you are not getting that particular thing, so please do mention in comment section, I'll try to address your query as well. Right now, next thing is cost push inflation. So what is cost push inflation? So whenever we talk about cost, so cost, there are so many cost factors. So if the prices of these particular cost factors like raw material, like labor cost or anything, okay, which increase, so definitely the prices for that particular commodity will also increase, or for particular services are definitely going to increase. Like, so if let's say in this particular marker manufacturing company, so the employee are demanding for high wages. So if employer increase the wage for that particular one, so that is definitely going, like they have to meet their break-even point. For that one, they have to increase their cost. Okay, they have to increase their product price. So if raw material for this particular product or for any product that the prices are increased for the raw material, or for transportation, for warehousing, for the labor charges, and we can say the government duties, the government taxes. So if these particular elements which are generally part of we can say which are the factor cost, so if that particular point increase, so that is definitely going to add on in the final price as well. So causes, basically you can further categorize these particular causes into two parts. One is demand pull and another one is cost push. Hope this is clear to each and everyone. Now next one, stages of inflation. Now what is stages of inflation? Basic stages are nothing, okay. These are like a range of inflation. If you study some economy, like if you study Indian economy, so during if you study 2022 Indian economy inflation range, so it is between 4 to 6%, right? So we are following a range. Sometime it is 4%, sometime it is 6.5%, sometime it is 5.5%. If you see US economy, if you study inflation range in US economy, it was like 1.2%, 1.3%, 1.5%. So that is also following a range. If you study some other economy, so they are also having some range. Like let's say if you talk about Zimbabwe, sometime it was 150%, sometime it was 175%, sometime it was 250%. So that particular range, okay. So these ranges, on the basis of these particular ranges, inflation are further divided among four stages. So first one is like I hope you heard about the creeping inflation, or we can say the trotting inflation, the walking, that is also known as walking inflation, or we have the hyperinflation situation and all, galloping inflation and all. So on the basis of that particular range, let's say if you talk about Indian economy, as I told you, in financial year 2022 23, suppose the inflation was the range was like sometime it was 4%, sometime it was 5.5%, sometime it was, let's say, 6.5%. Then it become like, it is following a chart like this, let's say. So it is a 4%, it is 6.5, and it is 4.5, and sometime it was 3. It was 5.2%. So this range, we are following a range. So on the basis of this particular range, economies are further divided among different stages. So now first stage we have creeping inflation. Now creeping inflation, as you can see, some economists, they generally say 0 to 3%, some say 0 to 2%. Okay, so those economies where the general range of inflation is 0 to 2%. So these type of economies, they are generally part of, or they are generally categorized, their inflation stage is generally categorized as creeping inflation. Usually you'll find this type of inflation in developed countries like US, UK, or Japan and all. So where the because these are developed nations, their spending are less because they already have a good infrastructure, their defense system is very strong, their education system is very strong, so they do not have more spending. Okay, so that means they belongs to creeping inflation. Then another one we have trotting, walking, running inflation, 3 to 10%. So like if you see this particular data, which means India belongs to trotting or walking or running inflation. So where the inflation range is 2 to 10% or 3 to 10%, right? So now this stage is generally belong to developing nations. So if you study the RBI report, the 2015 basically, or you can say if examiner asks you what is the suitable range of inflation for Indian economy, so your answer will be, I'm not saying this one, this is decided by RBI, so that is 4% plus 2 minus 2, 4% plus 2 minus 2, which means 2 to 6%. Okay, so which is 2 to 6%. So the ideal range of inflation for Indian economy, which is 2 to 6%, correct? So again, if you see a data of inflation, or if you go for the core inflation CPI index, so it is somewhere 5%, 6%, 6.5%, 4%. You'll find this particular range. Okay, these are developing nations. They are basically investing their money in the infrastructure, defense system, education, healthcare, and other areas. So somewhere inflation is good. You have to maintain a certain level. So maintaining that particular certain level is a difficult task. So the monetary authority, the central bank of that particular country, they are basically having this particular responsibility. Whenever you study monetary or fiscal policy, if you talk about fiscal policy, that is generally driven by the government, and fiscal policy, that is monetary policy, that is driven by the central bank. So fiscal policy, government, we have election system, in every 5 years we have elections. So government or politician, they have to show development, okay, in their second term. So they are more, that is more, we can say, that is spending oriented. But now the inflation challenge come to monetary things. Okay, so in case of India, RBI that generally manage this particular level. Okay, and even whenever they made their spending decision, they do analyze the inflation range or the current inflation situation as well. Correct. Now next type of economy, those economies where basically the inflation in between 10 to 20% or double digit. So that is part of galloping inflation. Usually you will find underdeveloped nations, because like in case of galloping inflation, the situation is kind of like some zigzag inflation. Okay, in creeping inflation you will find very slow movement, that's why it is creeping. In case of trotting inflation, you will find a directional movement, because we did changes in our monetary or fiscal policy, the outcome is inflation, right? So it is something like this. And in case of galloping inflation, you'll find this kind of movement, up and down, because they do not have a proper stability, correct? Now finally we have hyperinflation. So hyperinflation is where inflation is more than 20%, or the inflationary situation is out of control. Okay, so as I earlier gave you example of like Zimbabwe, Somalia, Venezuela. So these particular countries, even sometime Pakistan as well. So these countries from last few years, like 5 years, 10 years, they are facing this particular problem where the prices are very, the inflation rate is very high. So due to this particular thing, their the purchasing power of their local currency gone down. Okay, so stages, I hope this is clear to each and everyone. From here, examiner so many ask question based on like creeping inflation belongs to which type of economies. So your answer will be developed nations. Or Indian economy belongs to which stage of inflation. So your answer will be trotting inflation. Or even they can give you cases. Let's say in financial year 22-23, the average inflation for XYZ economy was 5%. So this economy belongs to which stage of inflation, correct? So hope you get these particular thing clearly. Now next we'll move to a measurement of inflation. How to measure inflation? So like whenever you talk about the measurement, so measure, like as I earlier told you, whenever you study inflation data, you will get number like 4%, 5%, 6%, 2% and all. So how basically we calculate? We'll take a reference of Indian market as well. So in India, we have two major indices. One is WPI, Wholesale Price Index, and another one is CPI, Consumer Price Index. Okay, so with the help of these two major indices, the government like if you talk about the government data, basically we go for CPI, Consumer Price Index, whenever you study newspaper and all, but we do have reference of WPI as well, right? So before coming these particular index, there is a formula to calculate inflation. So to calculate inflation, we have current price. Okay, we use this particular formula, that is current price minus base year price upon base year price into 100. Like let's say if you calculate inflation in this particular marker, so the current price of this marker is in 2022-23 is supposed that 100 rupees. Okay, the base what is base year? So that is a reference time duration. We are comparing with some year. Let's say in case of CPI, it is 2012. So let's say in 2012, the prices for this marker was 50 rupees. So divide by 50 into 100. So the outcome is your inflation. Okay, so there is a 100% increment or there is a 100% inflation in this particular marker. So base current price is for the current year. Base year price, which base year means a reference time duration. We are comparing it. Let's say if you are saying this particular good or service become costlier, there is an inflation in this particular product, you are comparing with past time duration, right? So that past is your base year. For every index you will have a base year. Like in case of CPI, it is 2012. In case of WPI, it is 2011-12. Now government is planning to upgrade this to 2016-17 as well, correct? So hope this is clear. So we have a very basic formula. On the basis of this particular formula, we generally calculate inflation. Now wholesale price index. First index is wholesale price index. So here we have the base year of 11-12 and number of article. Now if you talk about the number of article, at present we have 697 article. So now like if you talk about wholesale, so it is like, let's say if you buy this marker in a single quantity, that is retail, that will be part of your CPI. If you buy that particular in this particular marker in a bunch, in a wholesale, like let's say you purchase 100 marker, so your wholesale price will always lower than your retail price. If you buy this particular market in retail, it is 100 rupees, but if you buy in a wholesale, it is 90 rupees. So that difference. So here now we have n number of items, we have n number of articles. So out of these n number of articles, we generally, like RBI or we can say Government of India or NSO, they find those articles which is very important for your living. Okay, so out let's say the pearls, the the oil, gas, and all these are generally part of this one. So now the formula is same, that current price minus base year price upon base year price into 100. So if you do calculation for all 697 articles, then you do average it out, so you'll find your inflation. Second one, CPI, consumer price index, and this is a government index right now, because whenever government they came with their data, like during monetary policy, during fiscal policy, they use CPI as a benchmark. Okay, so consumer price index base year is 2012, and here basically the calculation is generally done on the basis of four core areas. So these are, like, we have urban non-manual employees, then we have agriculture, then we have rural labor, then we have industrial worker. Let's say here how they calculate for agriculture, or for like first urban non-manual employees. Let's say if any person who is working in urban areas, so in 2012 to do any task, he, like, what amount he charged, now what amount he is charging. Let's say in 2012 to deliver one class of banking, SSC, or any other thing, I'm charging 100 rupees. Now in 2023 I'm charging 500 rupees. So 500 minus 100 divided by 100 into 100. So your outcome is your inflation in that particular one. So CPI and WPI, please do remember these four areas, or the base year. So many times examiner they generally ask question based on these particular one. And even please also refer the current data. Sometime, like when budget will whenever this economic survey come or the budget come, so the government also give their estimations. During monetary policy, RBI also give their estimations. So examiner they generally ask these particular one as well. Correct. So as of now, we just talk about the basics of inflation. What is inflation? What is the basic effect of inflation or measurement of inflation, different stages and all. Now so many times there are so many terms which is related to inflation, right? As I told you, there are so many economists, they predict the recession in 2023. So now what is a recession? So that is similar to your inflation, something related. Okay, we have stagflation. So many times I hope you guys heard about this particular person state this stagflation situation in any XYZ economy and all. Okay, so we'll go through these particular one. So first we have deflation. Now what is deflation? This is nothing, this is just opposite of inflation. So there is a decline in prices of general goods and services. The earlier price was 100 rupees, now it is 70 rupees. So that situation is deflation for that particular goods and services. How this, like, you'll find in case of technology. So in technology, earlier the technology was very costly, but nowadays the technology is very, like, we can say very cheap. So let's say if you buy a laptop in 2012, it cost 50,000. With same configuration, if you buy a laptop today, it costs you 20,000. So there is a decline of prices. So that decline is generally known as your deflation situation. Another one, next one, hyperinflation. We already gone through this particular one during stages of inflation. So hyperinflation is extremely rapid or out of control inflation. So when the prices in any economy going high, like more than 20%, 30%, as I gave you an example of Zimbabwe, Somalia, Venezuela, Pakistan. So these countries are facing hyperinflation. So the value of currency is like very low in these particular countries. Okay, so extremely rapid or out of control inflation. Next, stagflation. Stagflation, basically it's a combination of 2-3 situation in an economy. Let's say, so if there is an economy where economic, like we can say the prices of the goods and commodity, the inflation is high, and the economic growth, if you talk about the growth, that growth is low or declining, and the employment level or the unemployment, that is employment, is also going down. So this situation, if any economy where the economic growth is down, so if there is economic slowdown in economic growth, definitely it will impact the employment level. So employment level will also goes down, or unemployment will goes up, and the inflation is high. So in that particular situation, or that particular economic situation, is generally known as stagflation. So a condition of high inflation and slow economic growth and relatively high unemployment, so that is known as stagflation. Hope this is clear. Next one, disinflation. So now what is disinflation? So disinflation is when economic growth is constant, employment is again constant, but the inflation is going down, so slightly going down. Okay, if you compare these one, like if growth and employment is constant, inflation should also constant, because this is all about the money. If there is a high money in the market, so we are getting growth, we are having more employment, but the situation is inflation is coming down. So that kind of situation is generally known as a disinflation. So slowing in the rate of price inflation is generally known as disinflation. Next one, reflation. Now what is reflation? Reflation is kind of reflection. Let's say if through monetary policy, RBI increasing the money supply in the market. Let's say RBI increase the liquidity in the market. So if there is a high liquidity, so the outcome, what will be the outcome? If there will be more money in the market, so people will spend more, so inflation will also goes up. So this relation of liquidity, there is a more credit flow in the economy, and this inflation, that situation is generally known as reflation. So if through budget government is increasing their spending, so that definitely going to lead there's a high inflation in the economy, right? So like reflation is a situation when inflation is come in an economy by increasing the supply of money by monetary or fiscal. So if through monetary policy or through a fiscal policy, government increasing their liquidity status, so if there is a more liquidity, so spending will goes up, so the prices will definitely goes up. So that is called reflation. Next one, recession. So recession, this is a very common term. So if there is a slowdown in economic activities from last few quarter or 2-3 quarters, let's say if you let's say this data is for world economy. Let's say world economy grow on an average 2% in last quarter. Then in next quarter it grow by 1.7%. Then in next quarter it grows by 1.5%. So this situation, so there is a decline in every, like with every quarter you can see, so there is a decline in the growth of the world economy. This can be for any economy, any specific economy as well. Let's say if the Indian economy grow by 7% in last quarter, then 5%, then 4.2%, then 3%. So that economic situation is basically known as a recession. So this is a very dangerous thing. Or whenever you see like stagflation is a previous stage of recession, or you can say recession is next stage of the stagflation as well. Okay, so guys, in this particular video we basically talk about number of things. We talk about what is inflation, or the basic the basic impact of inflation, and what are the stages, what is the effect, how to calculate or measure inflation, or there are a number of terminologies which are associated with the inflation term. So hope you get these particular things clearly. If still if you have any query, so you can mention in comment section, or if you have any doubt you can mention in comment section, so I'll definitely get back to you. Okay, so if you like video, please do subscribe my channel and do share with your friends as well, right? So this is it for this particular session. Bye, take care all, thank you.